How you doing, everybody? My name is indeed Olivia McEvoy. My pronouns are she, her, and for accessibility best practice, I always like to start with a visual description. So I'm a white woman with brownish, wavyish hair, and I'm wearing a black jacket over quite an indescribable stripy shirt. I only realised that after. So I'm delighted to be here as the Global Head of Diversity, Equity and Inclusion at Booking.com. I'm not yet 3 months in the role, so I'm still finding my feet, or maybe I'm finding my wings, might be a little bit more appropriate in this case. I've previously worked in EY, where I led the D&I consultancy practice, and before I came to Booking, I was in Twitter 1.0 as the International Inclusion, Diversity, Equity and Accessibility Lead. A nice, quiet 2 years there, as you can imagine. I was also very involved in the campaign for LGBTQ plus equality in Ireland as chair of the National LGBT Federation, which is the oldest LGBT plus organisation in Ireland. Had a very long-term involvement in the campaign to secure civil marriage equality in Ireland, which you likely know we became the first country in the world to achieve that by popular vote. We're just emerging from Pride weekend here in Dublin, so it's still opportunistic to say happy Pride, people. So LGBTQ plus activism was actually a very important component of my journey to becoming a DEI practitioner. And I feel hugely fortunate that my roles in employment and involuntary activism have actually converged into a career as a professional practitioner in this space. My ultimate motivation is contributing to society, that possibility of helping to create meaningful, impactful change in society. And I really do believe that DEI in organisations, whether they're corporate, whether they're higher education or otherwise, is a vital element to actually ensuring that progressive societal change. So I would say that DEI is in my blood, it's in my bones. I'm passionate about it as a rights-based platform, but I also really enjoy making it work in organisations and marrying it with overall business and talent strategies, and that is what I'm going to be doing as the new Global Head of DEI at Booking.com. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Booking. At Booking.com, our mission is stated as making it easier for everyone to experience the world. So that's a mission that actually comes with an implicit commitment to diversity, equity and inclusion. Making it easier for everyone to experience the world actually means everyone, and solving for the needs of our very, very diverse customer base around the world. So at Booking, we basically invest in technology that takes the friction out of travel, hope it has done for you there, and we connect millions of travellers to memorable experiences, transportation and incredible places to stay. And when you think about it, travel in itself is a force for good in this DEI world. It breaks down barriers and it creates understanding across cultures. Mark Twain famously said that better than any of us ever will, that travel is fatal to prejudice, to bigotry and to narrow-mindedness. And I would imagine no matter where you are coming from in the world today, we all need a little bit more of fatality to prejudice, bigotry and narrow-mindedness. But as well as travel being that enabler of what I would call prejudice busting, and as well as having that implicit commitment to DEI in that mission statement, we have to make that real internally in the company too. And that's obviously the challenge for all of us in higher education and corporate organisations. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity just to share a little bit about what we're doing at Booking.com, including for our graduates to put that into action. And I think it's worth noting that before any of us can put this into action, and you heard a little bit about my background there, for employees or for students, in the first instance, we have to make sure that there is as high a level of psychological safety as possible. Because without it, it's actually impossible to build a diverse, equitable and inclusive environment. And while we all love a big bang event or initiative, that psychological safety is dependent on everyday behaviours and actions rather than those grand gestures. What we do, what we say, how we act on an everyday basis is really what makes the difference. There's no point in being all of a DEI on a Friday afternoon because we're feeling a bit chipper, or all of a Pride-tastic for the month of June. This is an all-day, everyday thing. And how we team, how we lead, how we act on an everyday basis is the cornerstone of that psychological safety. I'm very pleased to say that we're very far beyond the land of psychological safety at Booking, and of course we have a specific DEI programme. So if we take that diversity piece first, in the first instance we have got to ensure that our workplace reflects the diversity of the world in which we operate and in which we do business. And diversity, equity and inclusion actually has to be at the core of our mission if it is to be a success. Our customers are from and they travel to destinations all over the world. They're of all genders, all race and ethnicities, all abilities, all sexual orientations. So we have to ensure that our service actually provides for the diverse need of that very diverse customer. So I always say, to know and understand your customer, you have got to be your customer. And that's why your workforce, your student base, has got to reflect the diversity of your customer and of your potential customer, which is your next level student, and that's a key element of success. And I think that is the same in education. So under our diversity pillar, therefore, we work really closely with the people in people analytics to ensure that we have got the diversity data to actually inform that strategy. We need to know who our employees are, who your students are, in order to actually be able to support their communities. We've also got a number of programs to help drive that diversity internally. We've got a Women in Leadership program. It's a networking development program for women leaders. We also have Be Champion, which is a mentoring program to address the gap that we see in women in technical roles and in management roles. And obviously you've seen that in education as well. We're just revamping that program at the moment because it's particularly important to me that it includes sponsorship. So it becomes a mentoring and sponsorship program, because women are often over-sponsored and over-mentored and under-sponsored. I'll say that again. Women are often over-mentored and under-sponsored. On equity, if I move on to equity people, the equity piece is really, really important. It sometimes gets lost. Education's really good actually at having EDI or DEI programs, but equity can sometimes get lost. And diversity and inclusion on its own is not enough. That term equity is really distinct from equality. Equality might mean providing the same services to all students. Equity means recognising that not all of them start in the same place. That requires us to make adjustments to actually address those imbalances. So helping those that need it to overcome barriers that come from bias, and that bias is often ingrained into systems and structures and processes. And some of those adjustments might be super, super simple things, just like using the tools to assess the language, to like Textio, something similar to that, used in their job descriptions just to ensure that it's appealing across genders, or it doesn't discourage candidates from underrepresented groups. It might be simply about providing the software for people with disabilities that actually enables to do their job. But essentially we have to look right across that employee life cycle, identifying moments where systemic bias might hinder some colleagues' process. And at Booking we do that across our performance management, across our promotions processes. That involves some deep digging just to ensure that those systems and those processes are actually equitable. I think equity also means being involved in building a society that is more just. So we've got a program called Booking.com Cares. It does just that. It gives our colleagues the opportunity to volunteer, to donate to causes that they're passionate about. But reaching into that society, going to that further step is really important. And then lastly, our inclusion pillar includes our Wellbeing program, Be Well, which is committed to everyone and making it easier for everyone to be well every day. But it has intersectionality at its core. And it's very, very cognizant of the diverse realities and needs of our colleagues around the world who come from very different communities. And I think that focus on intersectionality has been and is a trump card for all of us that works in this space. So I would say achieving meaningful impact and progress in DEI requires a very strategic approach. In the first instance, you have got to understand the business needs of where those DEI efforts are actually going to best support and have visible and perceptible impact. You've got to embed it into systems and structures and the culture to really achieve meaningful and sustainable or lasting change. And we always have to remember as practitioners in DEI that we don't own a lot of those systems. So therefore, building inclusive relationships and cross-functional partnerships is absolutely critical to success. It has to infiltrate right throughout the business and be owned by the business. I heard somebody talk quite similarly to, I think it was you, Nigel, just talk about we have to think global and act local for DEI. There's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach. It's got to be globally integrated, but it also has to be region-specific experience so that people will have that region-specific experience of DEI programs wherever they are located. And we also need to acknowledge the issues and the priorities for people are very, very different depending on where they are located and living in the world. I would say done well, this is all about brand building and change making. DEI should also support your brand internally and externally, but to do that, we need the right data and to use that as an evidence base to nuance DEI strategy and programming based on where those needs and those gaps are. But how does all that relate to higher education? As you know, there has been a big focus on the lack of diversity, particularly in STEM roles in education. And growing diversity in this area means making sure that we have got fair and equitable recruiting processes. And then once the talent is actually in the organisation, we have to make sure that those people are set up to succeed in their career with us and contribute to the mission. But we also have to make sure we always have a diverse pipeline of candidates. And systemic inequality sometimes means that potential diverse talent are cut off from opportunities or certain advantages that their peers have. So we have to find and we have to grow that talent. We can't wait around for someone else to do it for us. We have to be part of the solutions ourselves, and that's part of that equity looking outwards into society. So we've got a number of initiatives underway to do this. I'm going to spotlight Booking.com Compass, which is our graduate program that develops the next generation of top tech talent and fast tracks them into impactful software engineering and data science and analytic roles. So it includes all of our apprenticeship, internship and graduate opportunities. It represents our vision for developing and retaining the best talent to shape the future of travel technology. They're either based in Amsterdam, which is our global headquarters, or in Manchester, where we have a hub of about 1,000 people. And that programme is a chance for participants to develop really great technical principles and working practices from talented mentors. So I hope we are now going to hear from some of those current graduates and the early careers team. Maybe we're, am we going backwards? We have gone backwards.
I used to work for NASA. What we do at Booking.com is more or less the same process. Writing software, copy, connecting cables, all of this has to come together.
I understand now how the code wants to be written. It becomes like music.
It's not just racking and stacking for us at Booking.com. We're encouraged to reach out and connect to other teams.
Language can be so powerful. I want to help everyone experience the world in an inclusive and accessible way. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Small wins every day, big impact, and that's how you move forward.
Better learn to go forward on the gizmo. So this year we are welcoming 73 graduates at our Amsterdam and Manchester offices. They are photographs of our very brand new Amsterdam headquarters. It's essentially like a greenhouse or a plant garden. It's one of the most incredible places to work, so it's not going to be a hardship for them to end up there. Manchester is also brand new as well, so not a bad place to end up either. So as mentioned before, our two areas of focus are data science and analytics and software engineering. Each programme is 15 months in length, and the main goal is really to expose the graduates early in their careers to multiple teams so that they can actually explore where they want to settle on a more long-term basis. And that's just really the beginning of growing our early careers efforts. We plan to expand into new crafts and locations and the programmes, particularly around internships in 2024 and beyond. So Booking.com Compass is situated against the context of greater student mobility in Europe, as more and more students from within and outside the EU and UK move countries for their education. Our graduate programme benefits from that increasingly diverse and international atmosphere. But with that increased diversity comes those challenges that I've heard spoken about already this morning, as countries and universities learn to welcome those international students and set them up for success. According to the QS International Student Survey, among the priorities for prospective international students when choosing where to study are the country's welcoming attitudes towards international students. I think that was at 52%. So if in universities and employers and countries want to benefit from the diversity of that increasingly international pool of students and the talent pipeline, it's critical to have a DEI mindset and strategy, because international students must feel welcomed. They've got to be set up with the conditions and the resources to succeed in their country of study and future employment. So in other words, diversity without equity and without inclusion results in actually losing the talent that you've recruited as students, realise that they need to look elsewhere to find the resources and the support and the systems that support their success. And with that greater mobility comes greater potential in the realm of recruiting diverse talent, but it also comes with greater responsibility to proactively instill DEI into your organisation, because even as we see greater mobility in students across Europe and the UK, we do see an increasing resistance to the greater diversity and internationality. I think sometimes it's easy for us to think that that trend is more happening in the US, but we also have lots of examples in Europe. In the Netherlands, which is the home of our Booking.com headquarters, there's discussions about changing the legislation around the bachelor course curriculum to reduce the flow of international students. And language is being used as a way to control the intake of international students, with a potential requirement that 1/3 of courses are taught in Dutch. And that legislation disadvantages STEM courses in particular, such as where all the bachelor's and master's courses are taught in English in Eindhoven University, for example, to attract the best international talent. So in other words, with greater mobility in education and work comes particular challenges and tensions. And I think it's really important in DEI that we always emphasise the ways in which greater diversity, equity and inclusion benefits not just diverse students and candidates, but also all of us as citizens and as organisations. Another area where we see the need for a DEI mindset is digital transformation. Obviously, that was expedited hugely by the pandemic. More and more organisations have shifted their ways of working and learning to new technology. At Booking.com, we've seen that huge shift in our hybrid model of working and how we explore new technologies to actually take the friction out of travel. And technology has very much allowed us to recruit more widely, hire more colleagues from remote locations, and enable all of our colleagues to make those work adjustments that suit their situation. So I think in a world that is constantly changing and very fast changing, it's exciting for business and for education, but it's really critical that we keep DEI at the core of those changes to our ways of working and what we're working on. As I wrap up, I really want to land the message that DEI is something that everyone is responsible for, not just any one team, not just any one department. It has got to be embedded into systems and structures and processes. There's likely not one core function of higher education that wouldn't benefit from putting the DEI lens on it. And if we're going to be successful, everyone in our organisations needs to be all in for creating an environment where everyone can feel welcome and everyone can succeed. So as you listen to all of the inputs on the vast variety of topics that you're going to hear about during the conference, mobility, digital transformation, whatever it is, DEI is relevant to that, and you should be adding the DEI lens to it. In higher education, you are in the business of empowering people to achieve their full potential. And so my call to action is that you're always asking, how do we consciously create globally integrated, region-specific, inclusive, diverse, equitable and accessible cultures and experience where your students and your employees are empowered to contribute and to achieve their full potential. I wish you the very best of luck at arriving at that answer for that and that strategy, and indeed for the rest of the conference. Thank you very much for your time.